Welcome back, everybody, to the Wandering Samurai Study, in which we review and analyze every single act told in Rurouni Kenshin, and today's act is Act 76, The 10 Swords in Action. I don't get it. I don't really understand the name of this chapter. I'm just kidding. I just figured it out. It's because Shishio is assembling the Juppon Katana, and the action is what they're gonna be doing. It's not that they're doing it now because they haven't assembled, but it's what they'll be doing eventually. Other than that, though, I really loved Misao in this chapter. Despite Kenshin, Misao, and Okina not being the forefront of the chapter, Misao was just really good. Like Okina and Misao just have really good dynamic and this really good comedic timing to each other. They really play off well on one another, and I really love the joke in the beginning where Misao is kind of telling the audience what's going on, but really she's just telling Kenshin, and Kenshin's just there drinking his tea. And then of course the end joke where she might have actually killed Kenshin, where she's like, Himura, I'm so sorry. Like, all of that was fantastic, and I think it was a really appropriate approach for having the characters be in this chapter, because the stuff with Shishio, it's pretty serious and it's pretty dark at times. So to still have like an element of comedy interwoven into the chapter on the other front, it's kind of like a light versus dark thing. And our heroes are in the light side, so they can be a little bit comedic with the storytelling and stuff. All of that is pretty fantastic. I just loved the role that they played in this chapter, despite them not being the focus. But let's get into the chapter summary review, and we'll talk about the focus. Misao, Kenshin, and Okina discuss Kenshin's decision to not pressure Seiku into forging him a sakabato. Elsewhere, Shishio meets with a man named Hoji to announce that their time to take over Japan is nearly arrived. Revealing that Shishio has sent for the Juppon Katana to assemble, Shishio expresses interest to have some of the Juppon Katana take out Kenshin, while the entire team assembles across Japan. The first Juppon Katana member, Cho, arrives and learns about the intel gathered on Kenshin and Shaku's final sword. Oh, and Misao might have killed Kenshin. Alright, so I kind of feel like we have a lot to discuss, but let's kind of circle back to Kenshin for a brief moment, and that I think that it was a very interesting storytelling mechanic to have Kenshin not be the forefront and kind of shift the story back to Shishio. We just got back to seeing Kenshin after taking a brief break and focusing on Sanosuke. And just when we find out that there are two men that are of interest for the story, the story just takes a pause, and it was like, yeah, let's catch up with Shishio. Let's find out what's going on with Shishio. And there's really one reason for this, and it's a pretty important one, and I think that it was executed pretty good. It's because the Sakabato story isn't yet over. However, it is over for Kenshin at this moment, because they kind of hit a dead end. And so for the story to move forward and for us to find out how Kenshin will get a new sword, Shishio now needs to play his part in the story. And that's why the previous chapter ended with Shishio's men finding out the intel about Shaku's last sword and Kenshin arriving in Kyoto. Now we need to focus on Shishio so that the pieces move, so that the story with Shaku or Seiku or the Sakabato storyline can continue. So never mind the other person, Seijuro Hiko. Never mind that storyline. We're not even there yet. We're not even ready to address that man. We still are on the Sakabato storyline, and this is just how we proceed forward. And it's pretty interesting. It's a pretty cool way. It just again kind of goes into like Kyoto really is like this long, intricate story. Just when we think we know what we're gonna get, the story focuses elsewhere, and that's what it is. But let's continue. Alright, so Shishio arrives in his secret hideout, the cave. Yumi is over having to hide out in a cave when they live in a very beautiful city such as Kyoto, and Shishio assures her that they're not going to be there much longer. So he goes in, he has his meeting with his underlings, and he meets with Hoji, and he tells everybody that, hey, we're not going to be in this cave much longer. We're pretty much almost ready to take over Japan. And like, everybody cheers. And he also announces that the Juppon Katana are going to arrive. So why is this important? And really, it's just because, just like the story is moving forward with the storyline with the Sakubato, the overarching narrative is also moving forward. So that's also why the story was shifted over to Shishio. So like, now we see that Aoshi's in town. Now we see that Kaoru and Yahiko are in town. Now we know what Shishio's gonna do next, and that's proceed with the plan. But Shishio has expressed that he doesn't really care about Kenshin. Kenshin is just kind of a thorn in his side. It doesn't faze him. It doesn't even bother him. But how do we get Kenshin involved? Well, it kind of goes back to Kenshin breaking Shishio's sword in his duel against Sojiro, in that he wants to bring out the legendary Hitokiri Batosai out of him. Because right now he doesn't care about Kenshin. He doesn't think that Kenshin's even worth really dealing with. And so he's gonna send the Juppon Katana out to try and bring that side out of him for his amusement. Because it might be fun. If Kenshin dies easily, then he wasn't worth the time. So that's why the Juppon Katana are dealing with it. But if Kenshin is able to deal with the Juppon Katana and Shishio has to get involved, then it might be fun for him. I just love that for Shishio, there's a side of like hedonism to him. Like, he's like chaos, but like controlled chaos. Like, he is very much focused on his plan, but there's time for amusement on the side. But this also kind of reminds me of the humor that Shishio expresses when he's talking to Kenshin in Shigetsu Village, where he's like, yeah, I took over this village because I really like the hot springs. Oh, but I mean, technically, I need a Western Front, I believe. Kind of like that. It's this humorous reason where he's like, yeah, I might be entertained. But also, Kenshin is the last hope of the Meiji, and we can see that with Okubo going to Kenshin and telling him, please, go take care of Shishio for us. So Shishio believes that if Kenshin is taken care of, then the rest of it is just up for the taking. That the Meiji will just be so distraught and not know how to deal with the loss of Kenshin and their last hope, that Shishio can just kind of sweep on through. It's pretty clever. It's pretty smart, actually. And Hoji expresses some concern for this plan, and I think that with that, we can kind of feel out who Hoji is in this role that he is in the Shishio faction, and that he's the grounded person. He's the one that, while Shishio is thinking above and beyond and like grand spectacle plan to take over Japan, Hoji's the one that does like all of the behind the scene works to make sure that he could execute his plan and maybe kind of keep Shishio grounded where Shishio might kind of go a little bit overboard. That's kind of the vibe that I'm getting from Hoji, just based off of this introduction chapter and his concern. But let's go ahead and talk about the Juppon Katana, and that the Juppon Katana has a very specific purpose for existing, and that is to do the assassination work. The stuff that Shishio used to do back when, he was up and coming. We're not going to really learn why Shishio can't do these executions himself until a little bit later. But on the surface, it makes a lot of sense because Shishio is the head of his organization. He is too busy being the chief, the head, to go out and do assassination work. Like, he's evolved past that, and now he has underlings to take care of that for him. He has a legion of assassins, which is just really badass if you think about it. Like, Shishio has assassins working for him. And it makes sense that he has assassins, because if he's going to take over Japan and he's going to be running the country, he has to have people who can easily take out those that might grow to be a threat. such as Okubo. We've already seen that with Sojiro. And we know that Anji is part of the Jubbon Katana. And we can see what role he would play in the Jubbon Katana, being an assassin. Because we already know that Anji doesn't like the Meiji. So he probably wouldn't have any opposition to having to assassinate the bigwigs that are running the country. It's all kind of just filling out the picture. And so let's finish off the chapter by talking about Cho. There's really not a whole lot to break down about Cho in this chapter despite him being introduced. We know that he's a sword enthusiast, and that's really for the focus of putting the narrative back on the Sakamoto storyline. Because this chapter really was more so about Shishio and moving the story forward from Shishio's side. However, I think that Cho being created as a sword user and for the purpose of the Sakamoto storyline makes a lot of sense. It's the most organic way of moving the story forward in that direction to get Kenshin back involved into the Shaku Seiku Arai story. That's where we're going to be going next week. But that's pretty much it. That's all I really have to say about Cho in the moment. But we're going to be taking some time to focus on Cho coming up. So let's wrap it up here. This has been Act 76 of Rurouni Kenshin. If you like this video and you want to see more, then consider subscribing to the channel. Leave a thumbs up and comment down below something that you enjoyed about this chapter. I just really like the humor with Misao and Kenshin. I really like how it ends with Misao telling Himura, like, please don't die, please don't die. But anyways, I'll talk to you guys all in the comment section down below. Bye, ciao. Welcome back, everybody, to the Wandering Samurai Study, in which we review and analyze every single act told in Rurouni Kenshin.